Cowboys Nation, we've actually got some good news heading into this matchup with the Philadelphia Eagles. The injury report looks clean. Trevon Diggs, Tyler Guyton, and Brevin Spanford were all back on the field, fully participating. That's exactly what you want to hear before a game of this magnitude. But here's the problem. We can't even focus on the Eagles right now. The noise surrounding this team is out of control. The so-called beat reporters just won't let it go, and instead of letting the players lock in on the field, they keep dragging the focus back to drama. And now, Trevon Diggs himself just stirred the pot even further. He practically admitted there's a divide in the locker room, Micah Parsons on one side, DeMarcus Lawrence on the other. That's dangerous territory for a team trying to stay united before a showdown like this. I'm not buying what Diggs is saying, and I'll tell you exactly why. The truth is, this distraction could cost the Cowboys more than any opponent ever could. I'm beyond tired of this constant fishing for controversy. The media keeps stirring the pot, asking the same tired question over and over. What do you think about Micah Parsons? Come on, what do they expect players to say? Of course, the answers are going to be generic. He's a good teammate. I respect him. He's my guy. That's the script every player follows. Nobody's going to blast a teammate in front of the cameras. But then Trevon Diggs opened the door they've been banging on. Instead of shutting it down, he gave reporters exactly what they wanted, a reason to keep digging. And just like that, the noise won't stop. Now, the talk isn't just about Parsons. It's about whether Diggs is already looking toward his future outside Dallas. Is he focused on this season, or is he already eyeing the exit? That's the kind of distraction this team doesn't need. And when Diggs tried to claim that everyone liked Micah, please, that doesn't hold up. We know some former players weren't on board with everything Parsons was doing, and pretending otherwise just makes the situation messy. Bottom line, don't pin this on DeMarcus Lawrence, and don't act like the locker room is picture perfect. This tension is real, and Diggs just poured fuel on the fire. And here's what this really shows me. There was division in that locker room. It wasn't about physical fights, but it was about sides. Trevon Diggs and Micah Parsons had their crew, and when you've got groups forming like that, it's poison for team chemistry. Now, Diggs hinted that criticism of Micah was all about hate, jealousy, or envy. Come on. That's the kind of excuse you hear from young players who don't want to face reality. Every time somebody points out flaws, it's suddenly haters. That's not how a championship locker room operates. And let's not forget, DeMarcus Lawrence was already established long before Micah Parsons even entered the league. Lawrence didn't need to envy anybody. His resume speaks for itself. So to act like his critiques of Micah came from jealousy? That's not just wrong, it's disrespectful. Criticism doesn't always mean envy. Sometimes it's just accountability, and if players inside that locker room can't handle it, then this team's problems run deeper than we thought. Blaming jealousy in the locker room? That's not leadership, that's an excuse. And it's the weakest excuse you can give when you're talking about your own teammates. These aren't random critics on the internet, these are guys battling alongside you for the same goal. To reduce their critiques to envy is just childish. That tells me those conversations were really happening. He's jealous of me, he wishes he was me, he wishes he could put up my numbers. That mindset is poison. It's gossip, and it tears teams apart. And here's the truth about Micah Parsons. Yes, he's an incredible talent, but he wasn't some larger-than-life superstar before Dallas. Coming out of Penn State, he was respected, sure, but he wasn't regarded like an Andrew Luck or a Cam Newton, players who carried superstar status before they ever stepped into the NFL. The Dallas Cowboys platform elevated Micah Parsons into the national spotlight. That star on the helmet amplified his voice and his brand. But somewhere along the way, it feels like Micah started to believe he was bigger than the team itself. That's the real issue here. And as a fan, I can see what's really happening. If I notice it from the outside, you can bet guys inside that locker room feel it even more. Trevon Diggs can't sit there and act like DeMarcus Lawrence was the only one who had issues. No way. If one player spoke up, chances are others felt the same but stayed quiet. That tells me this wasn't an isolated opinion. It was a real divide. And let's clear something up. Micah Parsons didn't take anyone's spot. He lined up alongside Lawrence, not instead of him. Parsons didn't steal Lawrence's shine. Lawrence was never ranked as the league's absolute top edge rusher anyway. What Parsons did was elevate himself into stardom. That shouldn't have been a threat, unless egos in the room made it one. But here's where the real frustration comes in with Trevon Diggs. His focus doesn't seem to be on football. From joint press conferences with Micah, to complaining about contract escalators, to missing time with injuries, to avoiding physical tackles on the field, it all adds up. Instead of being locked in on winning, Diggs looks distracted. And distractions like that, they drag a team down. If you're not fully committed to the game, then you don't belong in that locker room. Ever since Micah Parsons stepped into this league, people have praised his confidence and swagger. But here's the question, does confidence sometimes cross the line into arrogance? Because let's be real, not everyone around him seems to embrace the way he carries himself. And that's not about jealousy, it might be about maturity. Think about it, even going back to high school, there were reports of coaches questioning whether Micah was disciplined enough. At Penn State, he ran into issues off the field too. That pattern doesn't just disappear when you hit the NFL. So maybe the criticism inside the Cowboys locker room isn't about envy at all. Maybe it's about how Parsons handles himself, how he communicates, how he leads, and how he reacts when challenged. If multiple teammates and even coaches in the past have said the same thing, then maybe it's not everyone else who's wrong. Maybe Micah really does need to take a hard look in the mirror. Because at the end of the day, talent alone won't hold a locker room together. Respect will. I don't know where these narratives are coming from, but here's what I do know. I don't trust Trevon Diggs in this locker room. Yes, people praise him for his talent, his family values, and the plays he's made, but that doesn't erase the bigger issue. The Cowboys didn't invest in 2 first-round corners for no reason. They brought in Darren Bland, Kyer Elam, and Savion Redwell because they know this secondary needed change. And part of that change might mean moving on from Diggs. From where I stand, Diggs doesn't bring the kind of energy or focus this locker room needs. I don't trust his influence on Micah Parsons, and I don't trust the dynamic he's creating behind closed doors. And if I can see that as a fan, you'd better believe the front office sees it too. And to the reporters, enough is enough. Stop shoving the same Micah Parsons questions in every player's face. Stop dragging this team into unnecessary drama week after week. Let these guys focus on football. Because if this continues, it won't be the Eagles or the 49ers or anyone else that breaks the Cowboys. It'll be the noise eating them alive from the inside. Reporters didn't just stop at the usual questions, they even asked CeeDee Lamb and Trevon Diggs about Micah Parsons. Diggs shared that he went over to Micah's house the day Parsons signed his new extension. He said it was a blessing to see Micah and his family celebrating together, and he was happy for him. On the surface, that sounds great, but here's the problem, it feels like Diggs is more focused on personal relationships than the bigger picture of this team. When Diggs was asked about the trade talks, he admitted he was surprised it didn't get done. He called it a business and said when you put your body on the line, it becomes personal. And sure, the NFL is a business, but let's be real. If you want to talk about laying it all on the line, you've got to back it up on the field. And too often, Diggs avoids the physical side of the game. That doesn't look like a guy sacrificing everything for his team. This is exactly why trust in Diggs feels broken. Fans see it, teammates see it, and now it's bleeding into the media. And instead of shutting down the noise, Diggs keeps feeding it. Please, let this be the end of it. If reporters want to ask about Micah Parsons, fine, ask once, and then move on. But dragging this into every single interview is nothing but a distraction. The Cowboys are about to face the Eagles in less than 72 hours, and instead of focusing on the game, the conversation is stuck on a player who isn't even in the locker room anymore. When CeeDee Lamb was asked about Parsons, he kept it respectful. He called him his guy, wished him the best, and admitted it'll be strange to face him later this month. And I get that, CeeDee's just being honest. But as a fan, I want answers with confidence. I want players to shut down the noise, not feed into it. Because here's the truth, Parsons is human. He can be blocked, he can be stopped, and we've seen it happen before. He's not untouchable. And if this team stays focused, they can prove that on the field. At the end of the day, the Cowboys don't need more drama. They don't need more locker room whispers, and they sure as hell don't need endless questions about Parsons. What they need is unity, focus, and hunger going into this showdown. And as for Trevon Diggs, it's time to move on. If his presence is pulling this locker room apart, then the Cowboys are better off without him. Period. So for everyone calling, texting, and asking, let me make it clear, the Dallas Cowboys are still them boys. No matter the noise, no matter the distractions, this team is still dangerous, and it's time to prove it on the field.